last video review. So this is part 5, and the last thing that we have talked about this trimester is graphing and functions. Okay, and so we have to remind ourselves what a function is. And the rule of the function says that for every x value, there is only one y value. Okay, and so they gave us several ways to look at it. They said you can look at it in terms of points. And knowing that x's are always the first terms in a point, we always write our points as xy, x comma y is our point, then you can take a look at each of the x values or the domain and say, all right, for every one of those x's, is there only one y? Well, there's not. So if you take a look at this, when x is 0, y was 1. When x was 1, y was 2. When x was 2, y was 3. But when x was 2 in this one, y was -3. That gives you a second value for y. And so if you're taking a look at this thing for the problem, then this is not a function because there is a second y value for that x equals 2. Okay? And when we look at it in terms of a graph, if you have your coordinate plane and you get a function like this, okay, you have to take a look at your x values. And so if x is, say, -1, and you draw a line through it at -1, you can see that there's 1, 2, 3 different y values. And this is called the vertical line test. Okay, vertical line test. And basically, you've just proven that there are 3 different y values when x is -1. So this is not a function. Okay, let's look at the next one. If you look at something like, let me change my color. You have your coordinate plane, and you look at some sort of a function like this. Okay, for every x, we need to know if there's one y. Well, let's just take a look here. If x was, say, 10, right about here, and you drew your vertical line, there's only one y value. Now, come over here, and this one might trick you a little bit. But if you mark it here, and you do a straight line, and it's really perfectly straight, there really is only one value. So this angle here is kind of at this slant, and so there's only going to be one value. It can be a very small slope, so that it's not changing very much. But this is a function, because for each x value, there is only one y value. Okay? And so in terms of the final, they're going to ask you for domain and range. Identify the domain. Identify the range. Okay? They're going to ask you if something is a function or not. And they might ask you to graph a few points. So plot some points. Okay? And remember that when we were graphing, we had 3 methods for graphing. We could plot the points. We could use the y equals mx plus b format, which is our slope-intercept form. And the other way that we could do it was we could use our x-intercept. So that meant when y was 0, you're solving for x. And you could use your y-intercept. If you have 2 intercepts, then you can graph. And the y-intercept is when x is 0 and you're solving for y. Okay? And we've been doing that this week. No, I guess it was last week. So, so make sure that you review these 3 different methods for being able to graph a function. Okay? And then make sure that you can tell why it's a function. So you have to be able to explain using words, Okay, we saw that it's very similar to test 9, which you guys took last Friday. Okay, and then domain and range, and you're going to want to remember that domain is the x values and range is the y values. And we call the domain the independent, especially in science, and we call the y the dependent. And again, we use these terms in both math and science, but predominantly these are the terms in science when we refer to x and y values or when we're referring to our graphs. But it is in algebra, and they might say, tell me what the independent values are. Tell me what the dependent values are. Okay? That should be your last review for this chapter. So good luck, study well,